This is the story of no ordinary man, born into chains beneath the searing sun of Saint-Domingue, a place the world once called the richest colony on earth. He was never supposed to rise. Not here, not like this. His name was Toussaint Louverture, a boy born in slavery, on a plantation ruled by brutality and fear. He had no sword, no wealth, no army, only his mind, his spirit, and an unshakable belief that freedom was not a privilege, but a right. While others saw a slave, the world would one day see a general, a strategist, a liberator, the man who would shake empires and ignite a revolution that no chain could contain. This is the story of the slave who freed a nation. Born around 1743 on the Betrayal plantation, Toussaint Louverture grew up learning more than just the back-breaking rhythm of plantation life. His enslaved father had once been a chieftain in Africa, and in his son, he planted the idea that dignity could survive captivity. As Toussaint aged, he quietly rose through the ranks of plantation labor, eventually becoming a coachman, a position that gave him unusual mobility and access to books. He taught himself to read. He studied Enlightenment thinkers. While others saw a slave, Toussaint was becoming a philosopher in secret. But reading wasn't enough. Freedom couldn't be found in pages. Not here. Not under the burning sun of Saint-Domingue. In 1789, revolution swept France. The monarchy toppled, and liberty became a chant echoing through the Atlantic. But in Saint-Domingue, liberty remained a word denied to hundreds of thousands still enslaved. By 1791, the island exploded. The largest slave revolt in history began. Fires consumed plantations. French colonialists fled. Toussaint didn't start the revolution, but he would come to define it. At first, he remained in the background, organizing, planning, preparing. He offered medical knowledge, negotiation skills, and deep strategy. And when he finally emerged on the battlefield, he moved not as a rebel, but as a tactician. Toussaint's genius wasn't just in inspiring loyalty, it was in anticipating moves before they were made. He aligned with the Spanish against the French. Then, when France abolished slavery in 1794, he switched sides. In a stunning pivot, Toussaint led his forces against the Spanish and British, driving both empires off the island. His military campaigns were swift, disciplined, and brutal when needed. He trained former slaves into a well-structured army. He taught guerrilla warfare. He turned sugar fields into battlegrounds. And above all, he demanded that no man return to chains under any flag. By 1797, Toussaint was not just a general, he was the most powerful man in Saint-Domingue. He ruled in all but name, and he ruled differently. He restored plantations not as slave camps, but as workplaces, hiring freedmen to maintain the economy. He reopened trade with Britain and the United States. He brought stability where chaos had reigned. But he also imposed order with an iron hand. Discipline was strict, authority centralized, dissent was crushed. Toussaint believed he had to hold the island together, or risk losing everything. In 1701, he wrote a constitution declaring himself governor for life. He abolished slavery forever. And in doing so, he crossed a line Napoleon Bonaparte would not forgive. In Paris, Napoleon had dreams of restoring a French empire in the Americas, and he couldn't allow a black general, a former slave, to govern it independently. In 1702, he sent his brother-in-law, General Leclerc, with tens of thousands of troops to retake Saint-Domingue. Toussaint, now in his late 50s, prepared for war. His forces resisted fiercely. Towns were burned rather than surrendered. The French, unfamiliar with the terrain and plagued by disease, suffered heavy losses. Eventually, Toussaint agreed to negotiate. Leclerc promised peace, safety, retirement. Toussaint believed him. He laid down his arms. It was a trap. Toussaint was arrested, shackled, and shipped to France in secret. He arrived in winter and was thrown into a cold prison cell in the Jura Mountains. There, in the silence of stone walls and snow, he remained, cut off from the world he had transformed. Before his death, he was reported to have said, "In overthrowing me, you have cut down only the trunk of the tree of liberty. It will spring up again by the roots, for they are many and they are deep." On April 7th, 1803, Toussaint Louverture died of starvation and neglect. The man who had shaken empires was gone, but not forgotten. Just months after his death, his prophecy came true. Jean-Jacques Dessalines and the remaining revolutionaries pushed out the French once and for all. In 1704, Saint-Domingue became the first independent black republic in the world. Haiti, born of fire, led by the enslaved, shaped by a man who refused to bow. Toussaint Louverture never saw the nation he helped create, but without him, it could not have existed. He didn't just fight for freedom. He redefined what freedom meant for those still bound, for those who had given up, for those who believed liberty was a dream meant only for others. This was the story of a man who had no army and built one, who had no power and forged a nation, who was born in chains and left the world as a symbol of freedom. This was Toussaint Louverture. Today, Toussaint Louverture lives not only in the soil of Haiti, but in the memory of every people who refused to accept the world as it was. He was born into a world that told him he was property, and yet he declared with every breath that he was a man. His life was forged in fire, tempered by intellect and lifted by belief, not just in liberty but in the dignity of all human beings. Long after his death, his voice echoes through time. In Haiti, his image is carved into statues, his name etched into streets, into history books, into hearts. He is not just remembered, he is revered. The man who turned sugarcane fields into battlegrounds now stands as a giant in the Caribbean sun. But Toussaint's legacy is not confined to one island. In every land where oppression still tightens its grip, his story whispers, resist. In every classroom that teaches revolution, his name is spoken alongside Washington, Bolivar, and Mandela. He proved what no empire could tolerate, that power built on injustice can be toppled by those it enslaves. More than 2 centuries later, Haiti still struggles, still fights storms, poverty, isolation. But its people have never forgotten who they are. The first free black republic was born in the crucible of rebellion, led by the man who had no army and built one, who had no map and drew one, who had no rights and still declared them sacred. He fought not just for freedom from chains, but for freedom to choose, to read, to lead, to live with pride. And while his enemies tried to erase him through exile, through silence, through stone walls and starvation, they failed. Because Toussaint Louverture was never just a man. He was a movement, one that still moves. He is the voice of the unheard, the symbol of dignity born in chains, and the proof that liberty does not beg, it rises.